Welcome to Influencing Magic, a Daps Magic podcast exploring how members of the Disney and creative communities became influential in their different disciplines.
We are interviewing and sharing experiences of an ever-growing influencing market, drawing from Daps Magic's nearly 20-year history within the Disney community. Come with us as we share what it takes to be a successful Disney influencer, both professionally and personally.
While seeking to influence kindness along the way, I'm Mr. Daps.
I'm Annie.
And we are so excited that you are joining us. For this week's, what is our topic?
You are listening to episode 7.
Oh, that's true.
Which is titled, How to Find Your Niche and Stand Out. And here's where you can cue the stand out. Yeah. Post editing. Just pretend it was in your earbuds.
You heard it right there.
But before we dive into our conversation about our niches, what's up with you?
What is up with me? I feel like we've had a good stretch of good weather now. And so everybody's happier, which I had forgotten, like the gloominess that comes with gloomy weather.
Yeah.
Until I'm seeing the sun come out and I'm like, oh, people just seem to be happier and spring has sprung and it's wonderful. And we used to see that in Minnesota a lot, where it was like dark and gloomy and snowy for months on end, and people just kind of like, they're not mean or anything, they just don't have the pep in their step.
Vitamin D.
And yeah, that too. So I feel like that's come back, and that's been a lot of fun. We've got new merchandise up on the store, which I feel like is something we're gonna have happening frequently for a while, just because we have a ton of things that never got up before, and we kind of want to get all of this stuff done so then we can get more creative in the future.
So maybe by this time that this episode comes out, we have Influencing Magic merch.
That's a possibility.
So where can they find this merch?
dapsmagic.store.
Okay. And we'll leave a link in the show notes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think those kind of things are going on and gearing up for the summer, which always comes quicker than we could ever imagine.
It's true.
And then Disneyland's birthday, and then suddenly it's fall and candlelight. That's what's going on.
Then Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween thing too.
Can't leave that part out. The spoopy season.
That is fun. Oogie Boogie Bash.
Yeah. As far as me, by the time this episode comes out, it may have already been my birthday.
May have.
So, I had a great time.
I'm glad to hear that. With that, let's get into talking about our niche. So, how to find your niche and stand out.
Stand out. Isn't that?
That's a song. Yes, you're right.
That's what was in my brain as I was typing that. Thanks for letting me have that moment.
You're welcome. We should have added like a music cue or something. But
I don't know the rest of the lyrics. I just know that part. Okay. So we kind of, I promise this isn't going to be a reoccurring thing where I just like tell you the definition of something.
Okay.
But I feel like we need to define what a niche is.
Well, and I think as we go into this, we're focusing on this this time.
Yeah.
Last time it was So You Want to Be an Influencer, which was 2 episodes ago. And as we move forward, you're going to see other different topical points like this that help you succeed, maybe beyond just social media influencing, but like influencing in your work, influencing as a musician potentially.
Yeah.
Like and we might even bring in special guests to help with these episodes as well. Anyway,
that actually would be really fun.
If you like that idea, let us know in the comments or social media. All right, go back to your dictionary, please.
Okay. I'm just like the resident dictionary.
I really wish you'd brought a dictionary and yeah, like this one was my grandpa's and it's 500 pounds, and because every grandparent I feel like had the massive dictionary
with the alphabet indentations on the side.
And the gold, if it was the fancy ones, it had the gold around the outside. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
All right. So what is a niche? A niche is basically a specialized section of the market of your interest. So it's not so specific that it's like we're going to tell you what your interest is, because I feel like that is so broad. You can choose what you want to. But it's important when you're thinking about becoming an influencer or having any type of want of an audience on social media
or success. Like honestly, as I'm thinking about this, Like this applies to social media. This applies to the workplace. This applies to,
if you're in entertainment and you're wanting to do auditions, or as a musician, like you were saying, you have to stand out and really like hone in on what you're going for.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about both of us. We're gonna talk about our own niche of what we kind of do in our own personal fields, because it's going to be different than what maybe yours is. So do you want to go first?
Sure. I think of it as kind of the focal point of like, what does it start with? What is your foundational target of what it is? And so our niche is we are Disney and positive stuff. Like when we rebranded Daps, whenever that was last year, it really did focus on our main thing is Disney and positive stuff. And the reason we did positive stuff is because we approach it from a positive worldview and a positive mindset of building things up. And that would be like the very, like if we're aiming for the bow and arrow and we're aiming for the middle of the target, like that's where we start. How do we do that? Our niche is also, we're a little bit quirky. We have fun. And then we also try to be professional, which I recognize is a very almost dichotomous balance of things, because on one side you have the professional, on the other side you have penguin puppets running around the studio and doing random stuff.
It's
it is, because that's who we are, and it's very much built off of our influence, like what our interests are, not our influences. But I guess it is, because we were very much influenced by the Muppets. And as I think about it, like, there's a little bit of truth to that. But it's very much reflective of our passions, our worldviews, and our like what lights up our Christmas tree, like what gets us excited. And so that's where we start with everything. And then that means we can do Disney and positive stuff and, create news or create fun videos or create a podcast, as long as it sticks with the core values that we have, which you can find on the About page.
Of Daps Magic. Okay. So question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have a different niche for your Mr. Daps? Like, I think you're listed as a public figure. Do you have a different niche for you versus the Daps Instagram or social media?
Sure. So Daps Magic as a whole is the overarching organization. And so it's a little less personal. Like, it's still fun. There you will find funny things, especially on Twitter. Like, that just tends to be where the most fun random stuff, because it's quick and easy. But like, you're going to find the big picture. This is Daps. It's all the Disney and positive stuff. For me personally, it may not be all of the Disney and positive stuff. It's more of like, here's the Mr. Daps subsection of Disney and positive stuff. So more on bow ties, more on trilbies, more on...
Which is very niche.
Cooking. More on music occasionally, in trains. Like, it's really focused on my personal interests, as opposed to Daps is like, there's some of your interests, there's some of Caitlyn's, there's some of Caitie's, there's some of Murray's, there's some of Angela's, there's some of Roger's, there's some of Mikey's, there's some of Merlin's. Like, we could go on and on.
These are all Daps Magic staff people.
These are anybody who's come to me, and Doug, prime example, fantastic, Chaz. These are all people that are on the team that have come to me and they're like, hey, Mr. Daps, I have an idea. And then I'll always be like, all right, tell it to me. Like, I'm always open to ideas. And they'll tell me their idea. And if it fits in the realm of Disney and positive stuff, and it's doable.
Yeah.
Because we have things, like, I have ideas pitched to me. I'm like, I love this idea. I don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah.
And so that's not saying no. It's just saying right now I don't have a way to get from where we're at to what we need to be at to be able to do whatever this idea is, whether it's expense, it's quality equipment, whatever. And so the Daps brand is really, it's more of like, it's kind of why I always come back to the Muppets, is the Daps brand is all of these very different people and ideas and passion points coming together that at the end of the day buy into Disney and positive stuff is a good thing, and when we post it, it makes people happy or better or whatever it is. It's a positive influence. And so I think that's the difference between the two.
No, that's great.
And sometimes they overlap, or often they overlap, because quite often I'll share Daps stuff, and sometimes Daps will share mine.
I don't think I've realized how niche yours was when you really think about it in relation to the other.
And photography, I should add to my
Yeah.
niche.
I mean, there really is not another Mr. Daps. I don't think there's anybody else who has the same overlapping, other than Disney stuff and maybe trains.
Yeah, it's a random.
That's pretty focused. So this is a prime example of that. As far as me, I have gone all over the place. I've had so many different audiences, but it wasn't until
Even in the time I've known you, like as you were starting to speak, I'm like, oh yeah, because pirates at one point, yeah.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this in episode 3. I think
like that.
episode 3 was
One of those.
mine. If you want to go back and listen to it, I talk a lot about my journey to how I've got to where I am right now. But I was in a ton of different stuff all at one time. So if you go back on my Instagram, I've got stuff from musical theater. I've got stuff from doing like stunt fighting as a pirate, which is
My favorite.
so weird and like crazy. It's amazingly fun, and you should try it. I did some cosplay.
Yep.
So I've got cosplay stuff in
That
there.
was actually one of our first times hanging out for an entire day.
That was really fun.
That was so fun. I was your photographer all day.
Yeah.
It was great.
I was dressed as Mara Jade, and it was so much fun.
Good. Yeah.
And then when I finally, dug into my art era, my illustration era, even that has changed, because for a lot of time it was more of like a Disney sketchy look, and then for a while it was Disney shoes was my niche, where everything that I was hashtagging or the audience that I was looking for was maybe potential buyers to buy shoes. And now it's so different because I've done more book, like children's book stuff. And then even now I'm doing more like fun, accessible things to a broader audience. So I feel like the way that I have approached it is I've gone very, very, very niche, but I kept switching. So I talked a little bit before about having multiple audiences, and it's hard to build a bigger audience when you're constantly changing and switching, because the audience that you've spent the last year building, say for like all the pirate stuff, probably aren't really into like children's book characters about cats and picnics.
Yep.
They're really not. Maybe the cats, but probably not children's books.
Well, and don't you think there's a lesson in your story too? And it's in my story too if we went further back, but you just told it very effectively. You didn't immediately be like, oh, this is my niche. This was a multi-year process to really hone down, like, no, this could be my niche. Not really. This could be, not really. Oh, this is my niche. What's it going to look like now? And I feel like that's a really good example of, because for success and influence and all of these things, I think it's very easy to get discouraged when things don't go the way you want them to go right away. And I'll say this, you're going to hear this all the time on this podcast, is one, don't give up, keep at it, and keep consistent, because that's how you discover what you're good at, what you're not good at. And that doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep trying, but maybe you change your approach, which is what you did.
Yeah.
Like there's probably, if we were to really dig deep down, there's connective tissue in everything you did. Like, oh, well, this makes sense.
The natural progression made sense.
Yeah.
And if there was anybody that was like me, they would have been like, oh, cool. This chick is like exactly mirroring what I like. Unfortunately, that does not exist. I am only one me. So like we have talked before, of like origin stories are always different for everybody. And so now I'm at the point where I have built up a really good art audience, and in turn found an amazing art community that overlaps creatives and Disney. Which I think is really cool, because I mean, I don't think I had a lot of artist friends who were Disney artists, and I'm not talking about professional artists. I mean, they are in that group, but I think a lot of the fan artists.
Oh, there's so many good ones.
Not necessarily people that do fan art, but fans that are artists. We all have that same connection to Disney and art. And we're finding our own niches inside all of that. So, like, we have a friend, Eva, who is absolutely amazing, and her work is so different than mine. And the overall broad category we both fall into, but my niche is going to be significantly different than hers, and that's good because she already exists. I don't want to compete for her audience. Number one, she's my friend. I don't want to be a direct competition and like hurt what she's doing. I want to champion her. So I am choosing to go this direction and really hone in on what is my top interest, and really, really market that area for me.
Well, and I think you hit something too that's important there, and you want to congratulate, not compete. And when you compete, there's always a loser. Like at the end of the day, like when you come in with a competitive mindset, and more often than not, it's you, just because you're always then competing against the next person in your head, the next. And I'm not saying don't get better, and I'm not saying don't continually pushing yourself. What I am saying is look at it from a community standpoint as opposed to a competition standpoint. And I think you and Eve are wonderful examples of, yeah, you kind of have similar stuff, I guess you could say. Like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's clearly you, and that's clearly Eva's stuff. But there would be an easy world to imagine where you could be competitors, like in a cutthroat dog eat dog world. And I think instead there's a positive approach of we congratulate each other, we build each other up, and we celebrate our differences as opposed to try to one up them.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm never gonna beat her in what she does.
No, because
that's the thing. She's amazing, and I don't want to. So. Yeah, so that's kind of an overview of what each of us do. But then also our niche for influencing magic is very different too.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's doing this.
Which is great. So we have literally found we've discovered our own.
That we're both passionate about. We both collectively just think it's fun, and it's been a fun...
And honestly, if anybody else, I'm not telling you should go out and start an influencing magic podcast because please don't let us get off of the ground first. But if somebody else were to do something similar, I still don't think it would be direct competition because everybody's going to have different guests with different points of view. We're going to have different ideas of content. And I think that's what makes this type of podcast so amazing because all of these different views are just adding collective education to this new genre. Yep. And it's you get to pick and choose the things that you like. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more in this next couple sections, but okay, moving on.
Let's do it.
How did you find your niche?
Very organically.
Okay.
Like at the end of the day, everything I've ever done is organic and very, well, of course I'm going to do this. And so like you go back to,
of course.
it always is. It's not, I jokingly have this phrase that I use pretty frequently. It's like, if you don't know what to do, don't do it. And it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of true where like every time I've done something that's really led to me finding my niche, it's because it was very like, well, of course I'm going to do this. Whether it's building Daps, whether it's, I absolutely love trains and grew up with HO scale in my garage and basement when we were living in Iowa, to my friend Brett has a train in his backyard, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Of course I'm going to do this. Like, there was no doubt. Like, the literal thought that came out that I expressed that night when I saw that train 12 years ago or whatever was like, when I have a house, I'm going to have a train in my backyard. And there was not a question mark. It was literally this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it really came down to, this is something I'm excited about, I'm passionate about, I'm interested in. Like it's a, well, of course I'm going to do this. Like, it's not I'm thinking about maybe underwater basket weaving. I might want to try that.
I mean, I do not know a lot of people that do that. I
don't, and that would be niche. But am I passionate about it? Am I going to take the time to learn? Because I've heard it's actually really hard. And because I did look into it once. I was just like, oh
my gosh.
Well, you hear about it on shows or whatever. And I was like, well, what's really involved in this?
Yeah.
Like, not that I want to do it, but I'm just curious. And it looked hard. But you have to have that level of this keeps me interested and excited. And I actually think excited is better than interested, because interested is almost an academic thing, and that's in one part of your head and heart. And you have to have that, like, it lights my fire. I'm just like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Whether it's painting or music or sports of some sort. Like, there's always that kind of like, that I'm get up and go. that I'm going to do this. This is
Yeah.
exciting. Like, I got up after 3 hours of sleep this morning because there was a story that I knew was going to break last night, but it didn't break yet. So I had to wait for it to break at 3:00 this morning. And so at 5:30 this morning, I was like, I'm on this. And like, that's the kind of,
There's a difference between an interest and a passion.
yeah, you have to have that excitement and that passion to really like hone in on your niche. And if it's a drudgery thing, probably shouldn't be your niche, because if it's not going to be fun, you probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah, you have
like
to.
some things in life you have to, but when you're building your own niche and you're building your own brand and all of that, build something you want to build.
Yeah, and that leads into this. You need to find out what kind of content that you're attracted to the most.
Yeah.
So you just said that about, this content is fun, but you need to think about the things that you're attracted to the most.
Yeah.
Find the things that you are 100% passionate about. Like the other things that I talked about, I really enjoyed those, but would I want to do those for the rest of my life? And
Maybe
the thing
not.
that I really discovered about myself, and I'd say the last 10 years, it's that when I am passionate about something, I physically cannot shut my brain off. And that's when I know that it is my whole being that is part of this. And it just keeps going and going and going, whether I want to or not, whether I want to sleep or
Wouldn't
not.
you say that's also why we both were kind of like, this podcast is a good idea? Because the amount of random times one of us was just like, hey, what about this? How about this? I like this idea. And that's a good indicator is when, and it's not going to be that way for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, we are definitely more on the creative bent of things and a little bit more out of the box. And I recognize there's other people that are equally passionate in a completely, I almost want to say mathematical, calculating way. And that's not a bad thing. It can be a very, like, I have people that are very successful that are friends that are equally passionate in a very, like, A, B, C, D. Like, I'm going to do this way. And it's awesome. But they have that level of passion that it's expressed in a different way.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something to remember too, is whenever we have guests on or we're giving advice in topics like this, anything like that, or other podcasts even, you kind of have to go, what does connect with me? Like, these are just best practices. These are what worked for us. These are what worked for our friends. And maybe some people we don't even know yet that'll be our friends. But you kind of have to be like, oh, okay, these best practices I feel like I can relate to and I can apply here. And maybe improve on them.
And I think, we talked about having the passion for it. I think it's also important to be calculated with it, though.
Yeah.
Because how many times, I'm, talking about myself here, how many times have I started something brand new and then burnt out within like a month and been like, yeah, I don't really want to do that anymore. And that's very much a hobby versus a passion.
Yep.
If I have a tendency to research a lot of things and then want to do it, and then I do it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'll move on to the next thing. So I think it is important to hone in on what it is, let it sit, discuss it with your friends, bounce things back and forth, and then decide if that really is the thing that you were attracted to the most.
And when you're discussing it with your friends, I think this is a really good thing.
Okay.
Because there's two things that can happen. Well, there's multiple things that can happen.
Okay.
Is sometimes the conversation just naturally evolves. Like influencing magic, I think is a great example. We both had two similar ideas that were kind of paralleled that when they came together created something better. And the bouncing back and forth really just solidified ideas that we already had and built that idea. And so there was never any point of like, should we do this? It was always like, maybe other than when we were pitching it, it was like, what's the best way to do this?
Yeah.
There's going to be other times where you have an idea and maybe it's you're like, I want to build a brand off bow ties. And you go to your friends and you're like, I want to build a TikTok where I review bow ties. I don't know. I just saw my bow tie in the camera.
Please
so
do this.
This I've actually thought about it. I'm just like, I don't, but this is my, I just don't know about the time and the effort and the, like, it's the things we're talking about. But that would be a solid niche that probably isn't being done.
Probably.
And So I come to my friend Annie and I'm like, hey, Annie, I want to
Do it.
this. Well, I was going to go with sometimes your friends are going to be like, I don't think that's a good idea.
I am not that
And
friend.
they're going to give you, I know, you're usually not. But we have people on our team that are very much the realists. And they're like, hey, this is this, 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 and this. And I think that's not a bad thing either. Because sometimes, like, there's two things that are going to come out of the conversations when they're, I almost want to say a conflicting conversation. Like, they don't have to be mean or in any way. Like, you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yes.
And that's very important because then something better comes out of that. So let's say I want to do this TikTok on reviewing bow ties and tying bow ties and how well they tie, whatever. And you're like, I don't know. And we go back and forth. I'm like, well, I'm going to do this. And you're like, well, what about this? Well, I'm going to do this. What about this? And sometimes you just get to a point where it's like, well, I think this is a good idea. You don't think this is a good idea. We're never going to, like, we're not going to see eye to eye until we find out if this is going to be a good idea.
Yeah.
And if at that point you're still that passionate about your crazy idea, like, I can't tell you how many people have told me to shut down Daps, to stop Geeks Corner. Like, if I think people would actually be baffled at the hundreds of times I've been told to just stop. Like, and it's not something I talk about very often, but I feel like this is the appropriate place to say it. Is like, I have been told through the years, like, it's probably had a good run. You know, maybe you should stop now. You're too busy. You have lots going on.
You are very busy.
I am very busy.
So it's probably coming from a good place, but...
And that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm not making any discernment or judgments on where it's coming from. And, like, some of it is good places. Some of it isn't. Like, I've definitely had the whole range.
Yeah.
But if you can go through those conversations and come out on the other side of them still feeling equally passionate, excited, and focused on that interest, you should keep going.
Yeah.
Like, and if for no other reason, then this is a personal pet project / passion.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it even if it's only for myself, which at the end of the day,
It can
a lot of the
totally be
stuff
that.
we do is
passion projects.
It's passion projects that happen to benefit a lot of other people. And that's something that's kind of actually our niche too, is building passion projects that benefit a bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing that you probably should do when you're thinking about your passion topics and roads is researching your target audience and figuring out what they're looking for. So, in my case, I could throw art up on social media to the end of the days, right? But if I'm looking for somebody to pick up a book project or pick up a specific type of art, I have to go out and research my target audience and either solve a problem that they're looking for or show them, hey, you are interested in this. This is what you do. I have this really cool thing that I think would fit into what you are doing, or that maybe you need to help you do this. Did you have to go through that same thing, or did you kind of create your own?
No. When Daps was started, it literally was, this is what is here. This is what I would like to create. Do you want to do this with me?
Yeah.
And they said yes. And it really was, let's create a positive Disney community. Like, that's what it started with. That's what it's still today. And at the end of the day, some will, some won't.
Yeah.
Who cares? But I will say I regularly go through and look at what's performing well, what's not performing well. Sometimes it absolutely surprises me because I'm like, that's not our focal point.
Yeah.
Like, and we've had some really astonishing things happen with the site this year where I'm just like, how the heck is that doing well? Like, this is, I posted it because I love it and I just want to keep it. And apparently all these people that I didn't know existed really like it too.
They found us.
And so we always have that focal point of we're looking for people that are positive and love Disney as kind of the baseline. And they tend to be a little bit more on the quirky end of things. Like, if we were to really dial down into the demographics of who we attract and who we go after, not that we really go after them, but like just who we recognize we have a magnetism to, is we tend to attract the people that at the end of the day, we're very much probably like you and me in high school and college, that we're a little bit quirky. We have some out of the box ideas. We tend to not be I don't know, I wouldn't call us ever the popular kids. Like, we're well liked, but I would never.
I wasn't.
Oh,
Yeah.
I liked you. But I was like, I've never been like, oh, I don't like Nanny. But no, I feel like.
No, I mean, I wasn't a popular kid.
Oh yeah, I wasn't either. No, I think we're liked, but we're not ever the ones that are the flashy, glamorous. Like, we just don't go that direction. We tend to go fun, quirky, real. Maybe a little
march
bit.
to the beat of your own drum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, we love people that march to the beat of their own drum, whether that's artistically, musically, whatever. I think that's why, as a staff, we're so close with Fat Cat Swinger, is because Marco and Mark and all of them very much embrace the same thing of, like, we're looking for positive people that are going to go make a huge positive influence with our music. And we just do it different ways, and it's very fun.
I think with Influencing Magic, we really thought about who we want our target audience to be. We had a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah.
There is such a big market out there for people who want to get into influencing. Like, there are generations now that are coming up and saying, like, hey, this is what I want to do as my full-time job. This is what I want my career to be, which is insane for me to think about, because influencing wasn't even a thing on my, like, you know, when you go to like a job fair and they're like, be a doctor, be a scientist, be what, like, influencing wasn't a thing. So if something like this had existed, or any kind of curriculum or marketing classes, I would have done. I mean, no, I mean, I would do everything, but this is the target audience that we're really honing in on, because we see that there is a need for not only education, but also life experience in what we have gone through, in a positive way. Because I think a lot of influencing, and I don't mean this as a critique of influencing as a whole, but it's very easy to get into that negative, or the shock value, or the, hey, I'm going to do this because I know it gets views, and it will stray you away from your intended purpose of why you got into influencing in the first place. And I think that our main focus here is showing that path is possible, in a positive way.
And to influence what you want to influence, because we're recognizing we're starting very social media heavy, but we are going to be talking with executives. We're going to talk. We've already talked with a voice artist, and artists we're going to talk with, and so it's really, how do you, like, we recognize from day one is like, they're all connected in this weird way, and nobody's ever made the connection of, here's your success point of wherever we're looking at, whoever you want to look at. That's, I can't think of somebody at the moment, but
insert name here.
Insert Mickey Mouse right here. Mickey Mouse is very influential, and everybody loves him. And how did he become the mouse that we know and love today? And, or, you know, how did Mr. Daps, or how did Annie, or how did Caitlyn Robruck, or whoever, how did they get to where they are today? Because I think just over and over again, and it comes back to these basic principles, is you love the idea of the destination, and the journey is never actually defined. And when you don't have the journey defined, it's really hard to follow the map.
That's really good. I hope you guys wrote that down. Maybe we'll have it on our show notes or Instagram. Maybe I'll use it for one of our
fancy
Instagram reels. No, but that's really good. Okay. Why is finding a niche so important, other than finding your audience?
If you want to have any level of effectiveness, you have to have a target. I've got like 6 analogies going through my head right now, but you're just not going to be, it's the difference between standing on one nail or standing on a bed of nails, or laying on a bed of nails.
Okay.
One hurts, and one is very effective at going through. The other you can lay on, and it's okay. And obviously carefully. But the point being is, when you have that focal point that's sharp and like, this is where you're aiming, then it's going to go through and it's going to penetrate into that market that you want it to do. As opposed to, let's just say you have a flat wall. Like, are you really going to be able to influence or penetrate into something? Because at the end of the day, you're just going to be pushing and working a whole lot more and really not connecting to anything. And at the end of the day, to be influential, you have to connect. And if you're not connecting with anybody, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I mean, think of a recipe as it's popping into my head as we talk about niches and I enjoy cooking. Is like, imagine if I was making bread, not that I bake a ton, but let's imagine I'm making bread, and instead of putting a teaspoon or something of salt in, I put a cup of salt in. Like, nobody's gonna like that.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be too much salt. It's just gonna be, oh, I just threw everything at it into the bread, and so the bread is just not good.
Yeah.
And so I think it does two things when you have a specific niche. Is one, it defines it so people can know if it's good or not. But you can also know if it's good or not. Whereas opposed, if you don't define it, it's literally, you might as well just dump salt in bread, or, you know, try to hammer through a wall with another wall, because it's just not going to go through.
Yeah. I think, number one, it's impossible to make every single person your fan. I think if you know what I mean?
That's for sure.
If you have this giant circle of people, if we're thinking like a Venn diagram, okay? Hundreds and thousands of people that are Disney influencers. I keep using Disney because it's our obvious method of choice. There are so many Disney influencers, right? So if you are somebody that is just starting out and you're putting up Disney content, and you're like, hey, I caught the new parade. You could have the best equipment. You can have the best angle. You can have the best sound. All the characters are interacting with you. You're getting smiles from the dancers. And you put that up against some of the heavy hitters in our Disney influencing community. Everyone's going to be looking at this because of their reach.
I have a prime example of that, actually. We have covered the college band. Hopefully it's back. For decades. Like, people know at the beginning of the summer, like on a year that the college band's happening, months before college band starts, I get emails like, hey, my kid's gonna be in the college band, or hey, I'm in the college band. And it happens with Candlelight too. And so since 2007, we've been posting college band every summer. I know, and I watch people that are friends, they will post one college band video of one song maybe from the summer that is gorgeous. They've edited the sound. They've color balanced, color corrected. There's the word I'm going for. and like, these are gorgeous cinematic videos of the college band. And it'll be one here and one there. But you go searching for it, you're going to find a lot of Daps Magic. And it's just kind of one of those things, is that's something we've built through the last however many years. And this person maybe does something else all the time here and over there. And because that's not their niche, it just gets lost.
Yeah.
Because they haven't built something recognizable and repeatable, honestly. And it's just kind of like honestly, this is a completely different approach other than the focal point. This is like, oh, I threw this over here, I threw that over there, I threw that over there, and I hoped that I hit this hole over here.
Well, if you're flipping that analogy, so again, we've got our whole circle of Disney influencers and Disney people that put videos up on YouTube. You have found your niche with the college band program.
And that was through a passion.
So, and now you are the top provider of such videos. So you're going to get all of those views because you chose that early on and you targeted that, and that's what you focused on. So if some of the other big guys put up, they'll put up the videos. I mean, they'll probably get some just because of their audience, but you're going to maybe get the majority of it because everybody knows that you exist. And hey, Mr. Daps is the college band guy.
Well, and we'll have more, and we're going to be consistent with it. And like, there's just going to be, for fans of college band, they're going to find more of what they're excited about.
Yeah.
Or, and I think that's an important part and that's the importance of picking something you're passionate about is, I was in marching band in high school. I was in lots of bands in high school. But, so there was the moment I discovered this existed. Honestly, if the technology had been there, we would have started in 2004.
Yeah.
But that was a little bit impractical at the time. So by 2007, we had it a way that we could actually make it happen. And that's the consistency. And that was like, let's just do this. And it was a focal point. Like, if you look at our early YouTube videos, a lot of them are just college band. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't a whole lot. There's college band, ragtime piano, and candlelight. And honestly, they haven't hugely changed through the years.
No, that's great. Okay, so we've told you our examples.
Yeah.
So if we were going to break down somebody new, okay? So, okay, you are super interested in Disney travel, right? That's like, okay, we want this to be our niche for a new YouTube channel that we are starting, okay? Disney influencing for Disney travel. Okay, there are a lot of different venues that you could do for Disney travel. You could do airlines, you could do cruises, you could do Disney destinations. There are just a ton, okay? All of those would be little subcategories of what you're trying to do. So say you want to specifically focus on traveling families. So these are not people going on honeymoons. These are not couples traveling around the world. These are families, multiple people, school schedules, adults, children. Specifically, we're going to narrow it down even more, kids under 3. Okay, so traveling with kids under 3, I have not had to do that in a long time because my niece and nephews are a little bit older now. But there are significant challenges that come along with traveling with kids under 3, especially if you're going to do airlines, if you have to navigate buses, if you have to navigate Ubers, if you have to try to get from point A to point B at a hotel.
Especially Walt Disney World.
Nap times are a thing.
That's the number one reason for minivans is because they have, what are they called? The things the kids ride in.
Car seats?
Car seats that are checked, and they know they're safe car seats as opposed to ones that might have been in an accident or too old, whatever. And I think that's fascinating. But
if you want to get even more to that, you could do like smart packing. So packing snacks, packing clothes, packing blah, 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 blah. So that's one example. Another example that I was thinking about too is say you were a lover of Disney food, okay? There is a ton of food to be had at any of the Disney parks. And there's a lot of people that go in specifically to do food, okay? But what if you're going to Disney with a picky eater?
I do quite frequently.
So that's a whole other subcategory, okay? Picky eaters. But then what if somebody has a food allergy? So not only are you already limited because of this, you have a food allergy. Well, what food allergy is that? There's a lot of them. What if you're specifically looking or you're wanting to show people what gluten-free options are there at the park? That is significantly bringing down all your subcategories. And I bet you there is a huge audience out there looking specifically for gluten-free food. So have that idea as you will. It's not on my radar, my radar, so I have not seen a whole lot. I follow a lot of Disney food bloggers and people on Instagram, and they are amazing. I am always on their websites.
Well, and I think the reason you don't sometimes find these is because I do feel like there's a cyclical cycle that happens. I know what I just did. But there's a cycle that happens, and it's quite often people get going, they find their niche, they're building their niche, and it just isn't going fast enough for them. And then they stop. And so then they built this audience, and maybe it's small, maybe it's medium, who knows. And then they stop. And so then that audience is now lost, and they're like, well, now where do I go?
Yep.
And so this is really why, where I said in the other episode, is you have to be consistent and you have to be in it for the long game, because you never know if that next post or that next video or that next article or whatever it is going to be the one that suddenly just puts you on the map.
It's always the one you least expect.
Guaranteed.
I feel like,
yeah. But that's where you want to have that niche, and then you want to have the fortitude to keep going for it. Yeah. And really don't give up.
Okay. So we're going to move into our next category of how to stand out, which is a little bit more problem solving.
Wear a bow tie. No.
I mean, I don't know if...
It does work,
Do you have direct competition?
Not really. There's other people that wear bow ties, and I won't go into...
Okay. Well, that's the thing. You should check out your competition.
I'm aware of them, yes. And I have...
If you are planning, this is exactly what I'm talking about at our next little bullet point. If you are thinking of doing a TikTok bow tie extravaganza with Mr. Daps,
look it up.
You're going to need to go and research your competition. What are they doing? What makes them different? I'm telling you to go pick people that are doing the same type of things that you want to do
because it's going to save you a lot of head and heartaches. Like,
yep,
it's not even so that you can just compete with them, because at the end of the day, you can all succeed together.
You can. Yeah.
And it's really like the worst thing I can only imagine, and I'm glad it's never happened to me, is can you imagine you put all your heart and effort and time into something like this, and somebody walks up and like, oh, see, you're copying my podcast. Or see, you're copying my look.
Which we did. We researched names in this type of genre for a podcast.
We went through lots of stuff before we got to that point. And so you really, like, that's just the worst thing in the world. Like, you just don't want to have that happen. But you also want to be different just to be different. Like, because you want to be you. And at the end of the day, I don't know anybody that's like me. Like, I know people that are similar to me. But if you were to be like, oh, yeah, there's a Mr. Daps in Toledo, I'd be like, yeah, right. It's just not going to happen. Like, there's no two people that are that the same. And that's where if you have that niche and you're really dialing it in, you're not going to find somebody that's going to have the same personality, the same interests, the same aptitude. Like, you're going to have a different point of view at the end of the day on just about everything. Like, I love going and covering Disney events because I'll be there with a bunch of people I've done this with for years and some new ones that I haven't, and we all become friends, and we all go home and we write and we make our videos and we do our posts, and they're all similar but different. Yep. And so maybe this site will go into this really in-depth on the history, and maybe this site will go into the fun part of it, and maybe our site kind of goes into this is what was happened, this is a little bit of the history, but we're not going to be the Encyclopedia Britannica. And like, each site approaches it from a different perspective. Maybe this site's doing it from the traveling standpoint of like, how is this going to impact a person as a traveler, and so it really is fun to see how all of us, 12 in some, and then dozens and hundreds in others, each come at things from a different perspective and approach for the exact same thing. Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's good, because in doing that, in figuring out what you like that people are doing, I'm kind of giving you guys homework, but
it's in your best interest.
Make note of what those people that you feel are your direct competition, okay, or that are doing similar things. Make note of what you like about them. What are they doing? Because like you said, everyone's going to be doing things different. Well, I really liked how these people, this channel edited their videos. I really like the stage presence that this person had. I really like how this person focused on the cast members at this particular event. And I really like, how they closed out or had their intro. Okay, those are all different things that if you put those together, you would have your very, very, very unique perspective on the exact same thing, like you were saying, if you had all covered the event.
And I would say even go beyond just seeking out your competition in your direct market, is where are the similar things, maybe similar coverage, similar platforms that are completely unrelated to what I'm doing, that have a similar maybe vibe that you want, or a similar format that you like. So like when Johnny 5 and I started Geeks Corner, one of the things we would do frequently is, one, we would watch Top Gear because we liked their culture. Like, we liked how they teased each other a little bit. They had that sense of adventure and a little bit of crazy. And then the other one that's really become more of, as we've moved on and Caitie kind of became the main host, co-host, whatever, is the Red Green Show, which nobody's heard of, but it was a Canadian broadcasting company show that was in the middle of the woods. And you look at it and you're like, how does this connect with Geeks Corner? And I can tell you it does.
Is it the lights?
No, it has nothing to do with anything you see. It has 100% to do with, if you look at how the feel of the show is and the interactions, like, we're intentional about topics we pick, the segments we do, and even like some of the humor we choose to use on the show. And so there have been multiple times where before the show, for half hour, 45 minutes, we'll just sit and watch Red Green and just be inspired by them. And,
That's cool.
And the same thing happened with Top Gear when it was me and Johnny, and sometimes Murray, and sometimes Tyler, and like kind of the Geeks Corner 1.0, if you want to call it that. Yeah. But that has nothing to do with Disney. Mm-hmm. And we recognized that everything that we had in Disney currently wasn't what we were looking for. And we liked what we saw over here. And we're like, how can we take this and make it part of our niche for this?
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times, like, we've done a lot of cool stuff with Daps. Mm-hmm. And invariably, I will hear, oh, I watched your show. And I'll be like, oh, which one? Oh, the geeky one. And half the time they don't remember that it's called Geeks Corner, which is fine.
The geeky one.
Yeah. They're like, the geeky thing. And I'm like, that's great. And it always amazes me how, like, for some reason that connects. And I really think it is because we didn't necessarily look at production value. We didn't necessarily look at sets, for sure. Mm-hmm. And, but we did look at what are the relational components in these different shows that really work, that we like. And sometimes you see that in, you know, our penguin interns on Geeks Corner, and sometimes you see it with Egon, like, and we can go to the Muppets and Sesame Street for that also, because I would say that would be the third show if we were to pull out of the quote traditional Disney mold. Like Sesame Street and the Muppets definitely had a huge impact, especially in Geeks Corner 1.0. When we were doing more music videos and stuff. But like, look for the influence from other things that excite you, that you're like, oh, this is way over here and has nothing to do with what I want to do. Mm-hmm. What if I take some of that and some of what people are doing over here that I really like, get inspired by all of them, and build this, and this is me.
It's kind of like doing your own case studies.
Yeah, very much so.
And figuring out what's working for them that you like and want to implement.
And I think you always do that. Mm-hmm. Like, you do that with art, I think, probably definitely. All the time. I do that with everything that we're doing. I'm constantly looking at what's going on, not just in other Disney sites and influencers and media, but like what's going on in other fandoms, what's going on in other news. Like, what's the news trend? Like, how are people digesting their news? What kind of posts are going up on different big websites that aren't at all related to Disney? Yeah.
No, I think that's good, because it's important to have that broad range and see what's working, what's not. You don't want to make the same mistakes as the people that came before you. Yep. Like they say in Jurassic Park, and then he's like, no, you're making all new ones. We don't want to make that same mistake again.
Exactly.
But it also is important to make sure that you are being true to you and figuring out what is going to work for you, because what, again, works for somebody else may not work for what you are trying to do.
Because most people aren't going to want to watch Red Green.
I've never heard of it.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, well,
you can look it up.
Maybe
you'll probably watch one episode and be like, oh, that was good. Like, it's an acquired taste, I feel like.
So basically, we just want you to remember that you are unique, and the world deserves what you have to bring to it.
And embrace that. Like, go with whatever it is that excites you, and go whatever makes you uniquely you, because that's really what's going to build.
It's going to make you separate from everybody else. Okay, so final thoughts. If you have ideas of what you want to do, and even if you haven't launched anything, it's okay to like post stuff and test an audience. Use hashtags, send things to friends, bounce idea. Did I say something? Did I say hashtags weird? That sounded weird. Okay. Send things to friends, because they are your audience. And, you know, family sometimes can be a little bit biased on what you're doing, but if you want to send them out to other people, or say, hey, I need you to not be a yes man in this, I need you to look at it critically, get feedback and figure out what that feedback is, and change accordingly to what you've
and don't surround yourself by people that are always just going to give you the same answers. Like, I know every idea that comes up with Daps, there will be at least one person who doesn't think it's a good idea initially. And it's not the same. Like, I'm not saying this one person is always, oh no. We have such a wide variety of people that are connected with us that it's going to connect differently with different people. And that's a good thing, because then you can proof your idea. And you're like, okay, that didn't work as well as I thought it would. So let's try this. And like kind of have that conversation and really, you know, sharpen the iron. and figure it out before you've put all the heavy lifting into it. And I think it's important to find people around you that at the end of the day you can disagree and walk away from them like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And you're not going to take it personally. Because if it's something where it's like, I pitch you an idea, you think it's not a good idea, and I'm destroyed by it, that's probably not a good collaborative relationship.
Yeah.
And that might not even be the relationship. It might be just getting yourself into the own headspace of like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
And you can. Like, if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, there's a difference between somebody thinking like, hey, I'm not sure if that's going to go, or just flat out saying, no, that's dumb.
Yeah. And that's where I think you need to find people that are almost, you want to find the yes and, or if we can do this, absolutely, you know, but not the, oh, that's dumb.
I feel like you need to find yourself a Roy. Walt had a Roy.
Oh, yes.
So I was like, I'll get there.
Yeah.
So Walt was very much the
I immediately
creative...
went to Ted Lasso, and I was like,
no.
You do?
He was the idea guy, right? So he had all of these grand ideas, and he would go to his brother and he would say, hey, this is what I want to do. And Roy would be like, okay, well,
this is what
I understand that you want to do that, but here's the situation that we're in, so maybe we need to adjust and like let's figure out a way to make it work. Maybe not up here, but like we'll figure it out. And I feel like that's the kind of person you want by you. I actually bounce stuff off of Caitlyn a lot because Caitlyn is very analytical and she thinks of things from an outside perspective. If I tell my parents will be like, oh, it's great, honey. You do what you want to do. You're doing great. And I'm like, no, okay, but thank you. But like, I need you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe just don't ask people that go like, yeah, it's great. And then that's it. Because that's also can be just as defeating as...
Well, because there's no thought or investment. Like, you want people that are invested in your success that aren't necessarily invested in their definition of your success. And at the end of the day, you're always the one that's at the bottom line of like, this is your brand.
Yeah.
And so you need the people that are like, I have bought into, in this case, Disney and positive stuff, which influencing... Magic is a part of. It's like, is it Disney? Is it positive stuff? Yeah, great. This is exciting. We're going to do this. As opposed to, can you imagine if it was like, well, let's sit here and let's nitpick every person we know.
What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong?
And really like rip it apart. Like, that's never going to be who we are. Like,
no.
We're just not going to do that. And so you want to find those people that are going to go on this journey with you and really want to see you succeed at one. Two, are looking out for your best interests.
Yeah.
Because I think that happens also, I see a lot.
Yeah.
Is where it's like, you don't want the people around you that are just going to kind of like not really set you up for success, whether that's because of their own insecurities or reason or selfishness, I guess, too. But it's really finding those people that you're like, I have so much fun with you. I respect what you say. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. And we can also disagree and still love each other.
Yeah.
And if you can find all of that stuff, those are the people that you really want to make into your brain trust. That's going to be like, oh yeah, let's do this. But there has to be that level of like, I think they have to be selfless. Like, it really is. I hadn't actually thought of this before. But that's kind of a thing is there has to be that like, how can I help you in turn help other people? Yeah. It's the pay it forward thing. I think that's why we like chalk so much, to be honest, is like, that's what they're all about. That's why Disney is so awesome with chalk. And, but I hadn't actually thought of that before. So I think there's that, like, is you're looking for that brain trust and that, whatever you want to call that core group of
well, and that's team. What comes with finding a like community, I think. And we can go into more detail on that in another episode of finding those like minds and building people around you that will help lift you up and not deflate you. So, but
yeah. And like, for us, Patreon has been a really good thing for that because the people that are invested in the site really do build us up and give us feedback. Yeah, and
financially and as far as ideas. And
that's almost more important.
Direct feedback. It can be, yeah.
Because, like, sometimes they've kept us from going down a path that's just like, oh, that wouldn't have connected with anybody. And
Yeah.
they thought of why before we even saw this thing
Yeah.
looming in front of us. It's like, oh, good point. You know, like, you never know. Anyway.
Well, it's so funny. You are segueing so many things that I have written down, but I think
I'm not really looking at our notes. But,
I know.
You
Are you?
I
Maybe
kind
you
of
are. I
am,
don't
but
know.
not super well. No.
But we talked about monetization and getting funds. And I think when you're first starting out, I think you need to just push that out of your brain. I don't think money should be one of your big goals of like getting success. I think you need to find out your why and your niche before you start thinking about, well, I have to get this many views for monetization. I have to make sure that I'm setting up Patreon, blah, 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 blah. That comes later.
Well, and if that's your motivation, like, I don't want to be harsh, but just quit. Because, but honestly, like...
That's the next quote. I don't want to be harsh. Just quit.
But if you're going into it, I want to be an influencer so I can make $1 million or whatever it is. One, there's no way for you to... Maybe there is a way to be authentic and be like, help me make $1 million. Like,
my
I just
gosh.
can't imagine. Like, that is so unrelatable. It's so selfish.
Yeah.
It's not providing anything to your audience. Maybe the ridiculousness of it would work at some level from a game show or something.
If you had it as your motivation of like, hey, this is my goal, I have this product and I want to make this much money by this time, this is what and it becomes an education.
But you're gonna have to make it a smart goal.
Yes.
And that honestly though there's your goal, and it's the education maybe is the motivation.
Yeah, not necessarily influence, or I think that's just more seeing if like I can make a goal.
I just kind of think if money is your goal, it's very hard to be, because it's such a selfish thing. Like, I feel like it's like, this is what I want.
I mean, that's okay, but maybe just not in this.
But not as your primary
motivation.
motivation. Yeah. Like, when you're looking for a niche, and that's what we're talking about, and you're trying to stand out, and you're trying to, at the end of the day, you're successful by providing something for something.
Yes.
And if your number one process is, I want to get something out of this, as opposed to, I want to be passionate about it, I want to provide, I want to make the world a better place. I just think
it's in the wrong field. Yeah.
It's in the wrong field, and it's probably, like, I don't know many people in many fields that, I guess maybe in finance, but yeah, but like, there's not a lot of places in the world where if that's your number one and only thing that motivates you, that you're going to be super successful with in terms of influence. Other than there's different types of influence, and we can get into that another time, but it's much more of then it's an exchange as opposed to a value add.
Yeah.
And that is a full nother show.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought, I'm getting all these thoughts is because we're in the final thoughts, and I'm
That's
like,
okay.
oh, now I got all these things coming to my head.
No, you're good. I think the last note that we kind of want to leave you with is just be adaptable. Be adaptable to change, and be adaptable to pivot if something is not working. Because you can always change your focus. You can always lean into something. Maybe you've got multiple things that you're trying to do at the same time, or maybe your niche is too wide, and now you've got a split road, like this is doing well and this is not doing so well. Put all your focus on the one that's doing well and make that work for you.
Or maybe one's more fulfilling. Like, we have definitely done things through the years that maybe is not quite as good short term from a numbers standpoint or whatever, but it's been more fulfilling to go this way instead.
Most of my jobs have been that way.
Yeah. And I think that's important to know too, is like, if it's not going to be something you feel good about, like, life's too short to really keep going with that then. And so then adapt. Like, hey, I like this element of it. This part, not so much. And, maybe switch that niche a little bit and do it. And at the end of the day, it really is just about doing it. Like, if I said this earlier, if we can do it, anybody can do it, because our lives have been all over the place.
It's true.
And I really do think, what is it? Success is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. And I might have reversed it where it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But either way, success is more about what you put into it than some really fancy idea or getting lucky. Like, you build your own luck in many regards.
Yeah.
And so if you decide you can, you absolutely can. And if you decide you can't, that's true too also. But
we believe in you.
Yeah.
And you got this.
You do.
You can go out there and you can do the thing. You can do the hard thing.
You really can.
Yeah. Thumbs up from Annie. And I don't know if you want to give them a thumbs up too.
Thumbs up. Yeah, I do. Good. All right. Well, we hope you've really enjoyed this, got something out of it. We'd love to hear from you in the comments or social media, anywhere. Your thoughts on this, if you have extra tips that you think should be added to it, add them into the comments and future people can benefit from that as well.
I will also add that I'm going to be putting together a PDF with a lot of the points that we talked about in this episode that you can download, you can print out, and it's a little bit interactive as far as finding the people that you enjoy, writing down the things that you like that they're doing, and a little bit of a little worksheet to help you find your niche. And that'll be available in the show notes. And we'll let you know if it's any other place that you can find it.
You will find it everywhere. It'll be great. But yeah, that's very good. And really, this is an active thing. So, what you get out of it really comes into what you bring to it also. So engage with us in the conversation, whether it's on social media, in the show notes, wherever it is. And if you have ideas that would help with this show, let us know. If you have ideas for people that you think would be cool to interview, we'd love to hear that as well, because there are so many people in the big Disney community that are influencing for good in different ways. And we have some really big ideas of people that we'd like to get on to share how they are doing that in their careers as well. And hopefully that'll inspire you to pursue whatever dream it is that you do. And if we have enough of these different dreams that have come true that we share on here, hopefully some new dreams come out of that people can be like, I'm pulling a little over here, pulling a little over there, and here is my dream. I'm going for it. Mickey Mouse takes over at the end. I just had the Phantasm thing pop into my head.
This is my dream.
Exactly. And then also, always on Patreon is where the most in-depth conversation, I feel like, ends up happening. And we've got a lot of fun stuff going up on Patreon, whether it's weekly updates, conversations. Often some of our patrons will post pictures from the past that you just don't see anywhere else that are pretty fun.
Oh, that's cool.
And like Clocky, sent from Disneyland, shout out, great podcast, put some really amazing pictures of Disneyland from way back in the day. And they're fun, and it's just a good place to connect and also support something you believe in.
Also, we do an after show Patreon special edition after each episode that we film here. So when we're finished, we're going to shut the cameras off and do something special over on Patreon.
We're going to do it again. Also, what else we need to do?
I think that's it.
Okay. So thank you.
Oh, we forgot to say like and subscribe, or did you do that already?
No, but that's you.
Okay. Like, subscribe, or follow wherever you are watching. We are all over the place. We would love it if you could give us a review, because that helps Apple Podcasts specifically know that we are up and rising and we are worth listening to. So we would really appreciate that.
That's correct. And thank you so much for joining with us with Influencing Magic, which is made possible by dapsmagic.com, which is a safe and positive place to find Disney news, resources, and community. Your hosts today have been me, Mr. Daps, and my friend Annie. This podcast is produced by both Mr. Daps and Annie. We're talking about ourselves. Special thanks to our guest coordinator and social media extraordinaire, Caitlyn. You can find everyone's social media, including Caitlyn, including Caitie that makes us look good, Roger who tweets for us during the week, all sorts of people in the show notes. We have them there. You won't want to miss them, and thank them as well. We don't have a sponsor yet. Otherwise, she'd be talking about it right now.
Yeah, if you wanna sponsor us, you can email us at influencingmagic@gmail.com, because that would be cool. You could be our first one.
That would be amazing. Make it a great day, everyone, and keep kind.